Back here on The Drive on 104.5 The Team ESPN Radio. We're joined today on The Drive by Jake Asman, host of The Jake Asman Show, as well as basically every other radio station that you can think of across the country. Jake, are you adding more radio stations to your ledger?
I'm trying to set the record for most, part-time, freelance, whatever you're going to call it, radio jobs out there. I love what I do. Get the chance to be on ESPN locally in New York, and nationally is amazing. And Sirius XM had me doing shows on Mad Dog Sports Radio, and then they just gave me an opportunity to contribute on NFL radio now. So I'm excited, man. It's I could talk football year round, and that's what that station's all about. So it's great.
That's fair. Well, congratulations. It's well deserved. The more that we can get you on our airways up here in the Capital Region, we always try to do that. But how is your off season treating you, Jake? I know you just completed a move as well. How are things?
Things are good as far as my life, as far as the move and getting situated after moving from Texas back to New York City. But as a Knicks fan, today's tough. Just trying to, grasp the end of the season. It just feels so disappointing. We never got to truly see what this team could do. You love the fight, you love the grittiness and everything, but at the end of the day, you look at this Knicks season, and it just feels like they just came up short due to things that they couldn't control, and that's what's so unfortunate.
That's fair. I mean, the ultimate takeaway, and you don't want to oversimplify because obviously there are other things to break down, but does it feel as though the injuries are going to be the legacy of this 2024 Knicks team?
It certainly does. How could it not, right? I mean, I'm not saying the Knicks would be fully healthy because I don't know if that's realistic, but if they just say never lost OG Anunoby in Game 2, right? He just played. They had the same guys out there that they had when they were able to get past the Sixers in 6 games. I think that was enough to beat Indiana in 5, maybe at the most 6 games. But losing Anunoby, and he did a great job trying to gut through it and play in Game 7, hit some 2 shots, but he couldn't move, and that was obvious, so he only could play 5 minutes. The heart injury, him playing through that, he wasn't the same guy. Brunson, before he even fractured his hand, was playing compromised with the foot injury. This team was just too beat up, not to mention they haven't had an All-NBA player, an All-Star, and Julius Randle since January. It was just too much, and it was amazing that they were able to go as far as they did. You love the fight, you love how they laid it all out there, but it's unfortunate because I think we were truly robbed of a team that at least was good enough to get to a conference finals. And if they were healthy, I'm not saying they would have beaten Boston, but they would have made it a real series, and now we'll never know.
Yeah, I think it's a fair argument to make just in how well this group seemed to click when you got some modicum of health. Say you even didn't, you didn't have Julius Randle going into the playoffs, but when you had Robinson and you had Bogdanovich coming off the bench and Anunoby was healthy, you saw how well this group was able to click. So I think you're fair in saying that. It also calls to mind the question of the rotation and the usage by Tom Thibodeau. Do you have any issue with the way that Thibodeau goes about using his players and how much some of his best players end up playing?
I really don't, because I think it's a false narrative when you really break it down. I'm not saying in the past he wasn't known for burning guys out or playing them too much, but when you really look at what transpired with the Knicks this year, to me it was just a set of extraordinarily unfortunate circumstances. For example, Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle, they were not even in the top 10 in minutes per game this year.
Right.
You go back and you look at some of the comments from people. I mean, Randall hurt his shoulder on a tabletop. Mitchell Robinson got flagrant fouled, which suffered his injury. OG Anunoby stepped wrong on a fast break. Bogdanovich got dove on. Hart got collided into. Brunson broke his hand. He hurt his foot in kind of like a fluky type play before that. Other than maybe, I guess, OG Anunoby, who played a lot of minutes, I don't think you could blame Thibodeau. And the reason why OG's playing as many minutes as he is because of all these other injuries that I mentioned, right? You're going to blame Tom Thibodeau for Mitchell Robinson getting hurt? He's always been hurt. OG's had injury problems. It was out of necessity. They couldn't go to a 12-man rotation like what Indiana was doing because they just didn't have the guys. Think about it like this. If the Knicks were fully healthy, Josh Hart, who everyone is talking about, his performance, having to play 48 minutes basically every night, he'd be their 6th man coming off the bench. Yeah. So I just think it's unfair to criticize the head coach because at the end of the day, he got the absolute most you could have imagined from this team, and he deserves so much credit for that.
Yeah, that's a very fair point, and that's a rational way to look at it, especially when you see some of those numbers in the regular season. But were there things, and you talked about how you were at the games in this series, so were there things that Indiana did and parts of their game plan, parts of their roster structure, whatever else, that provided some issues to the Knicks, even when they were some modicum of healthy?
Look, Indiana's a good team. I don't want to take anything away from them. I just think the Knicks are better. But one of the things Indiana does well is they got a really, really good team of shooters. They spaced the floor well, and that first half of Game 7 yesterday was ridiculous. I mean, they didn't miss. They shot 80% from the floor. I think I saw it was the highest shooting percentage in a first half in a Game 7's history. In fact, I think their total shooting percentage for the game was the best in any Game 7. Yeah. And you give them credit because they hit some tough shots. I didn't think the Knicks' defense was great early. I thought, by the second quarter, though, the Knicks started to play better defense, and the shot making by Indiana was just ridiculous. I mean, even go back to Game 3 and the shot that was hit at the end of regulation for them to win that game. If that fluke shot doesn't go in, the Knicks are up 3-0 in the series, and it's totally different. So Indiana's a good team. I just get frustrated as a Knicks fan that we don't get to truly, see what this team could have done. And, they still had a chance, and you give Indiana credit. They silenced the crowd early. They came out, hit the shots, but it's just a tough way to go out. It really is.
Yeah, very true. Jake Asman with us here on The Drive on 104.5 The Team, host of The Jake Asman Show. You can also catch him locally on ESPN New York, nationally on ESPN Radio, Mad Dog Radio, Sirius XM, NFL Radio as well. And what I would recommend is just follow him on Twitter at Jake Asman so you can keep up with all the spots where he is. Would you really describe yourself as a Chipotle connoisseur, though?
I would, man. I mean, let me tell you, when it comes to Chipotle, there are more tricks to how to maximize your order that I have than any man on the planet. So I don't know if I want to share all those with the audience because they might not all be legal, but I got you, Dan, off air.
I appreciate that. I was wondering if that was what you really get behind the Patreon wall or something like that. I was wondering if that's where the trade secrets were kept. Well, before we move on to the Jets side of the conversation, which is what we normally do with you on this program, if you look at where this team's headed into the offseason, as you mentioned, I'm right there with you. I think they could have gone toe-to-toe against a team like Boston in an East Final if they were completely healthy. But are there elements on your Knick fan wish list that you're hoping for or expecting in what is an offseason that you're hoping could finally get this team over the hump and make them a true championship contender?
Well, I'm certainly hoping the basketball injury gods, give them a break, similar to the football injury gods with the football team I root for and cover the Jets. So I think you start there. But look, I mean, the Knicks have some interesting decisions to make from this standpoint. Isaiah Hartenstein is a guy they need to find a way to bring back. The problem is, due to the NBA's salary cap structure, they can't pay him more than, I think it's around $16 or $17 million. He might have a better offer elsewhere, and he's going to have to decide between taking more money or staying with the Knicks. I mean, can they maybe move on from Mitchell Robinson, find someone to take on that contract to create some space to keep Hartenstein? Because I think he's a better player, he's more durable, and he's really important. So that's what I'm looking at first. Plus, OG Anunoby, he has a player option. He's going to opt out. The Knicks are probably going to try and offer him an extension. I don't think they made the trade in the first place without the framework of a deal agreed upon. I mean, let's call it for what it is. I mean, OG's agent is Leon Rose's son at CAA, so obviously there's some family ties there. So I expect the Knicks to be able to extend OG Anunoby, and then you kind of wonder, what's the future of Julius Randle coming off this injury? He got a tradable contract. He was having a phenomenal season before he got hurt. If there's an opportunity to upgrade and include Randle in the deal for another star, would the Knicks do it? Or, because they did go 15-2 with that combination of Brunson, Randle, and OG in January before Randle went down, OG went down, and all the other injuries, do the Knicks maybe try and see it through and at least run it back going into next year, seeing what that group could do all together, finally getting a chance to play together? So they got some interesting decisions. I trust Leon Rose, their general manager, to make the right ones, because since he's been here, he basically has nailed most of his moves.
That's a fair point. Is there a star that's on your wish list? Does anybody fit the framework for what you would want?
I think you start probably with the Suns, right? If they're going to break it up. I mean, even though he, to me, annoys me to no end as an athlete and some of the things he says, Kevin Durant is certainly going to be a name you got to look for. Devin Booker, if they really were going to blow it up, there's been rumblings for a while that he wants to play in the New York market. Okay, you probably start there, but I mean, it's the NBA. It always kind of feels like when you least expect it, someone becomes available. And I think really for the first time now in a while, the Knicks have positioned themselves where, people could just throw out the Knicks because it's New York and it never actually happens. I actually feel like because the Knicks have so many draft picks, they have that superstar point guard now in Jalen Brunson, who embodies everything you want in a modern athlete. I mean, his answers at the podium yesterday were incredible. Just the way that he is connected with this fan base is special. And I think the Knicks are a destination again. So I think it's going to be interesting to see when that star player does ask out, if the Knicks are in position to go and target that guy if they make that move.
So, Jake, you're telling me that the Knicks won't be in on Bronny James to try to lure LeBron James to New York?
I think that ship sailed back in 2010 when LeBron chose to go to Miami instead of play for the Knicks.
You're right about that. Quickly before we wrap up, I mean, the Knicks are going to continue to be a story. It's awesome to be. Actually, before we get to the football side as well, I mean, you're looking at this from a fan's perspective as well as the journalistic perspective. I mean, have you seen a Knicks team engage with the Knicks fan base in the way that this year's team did? I'm just not sure that I have. Not
in my lifetime, right? I mean, I'm not old enough to truly remember the Ewing Knicks. Sure. I don't really remember the last time the Knicks have had sustained success. I mean, I said this on a couple of the national shows I've done. A lot of people are like, "Oh, why are Knicks fans going so crazy? They only just want a playoff round." It's like, I don't think people understand. See, this is a fan base that is completely unified by the city of New York, whereas Yankee fans, there's Met fans, Giants fans, there's Jet fans, there's 3 hockey teams in the tri-state. So the New York fan is very split, unlike Boston or Philly or Dallas, where they only have one of each team and they all root for that team. With all due respect to the Brooklyn Nets, their fan base is probably 5-10%. So you're talking about 90% of the New York sports fan supporting the Knicks. So you have that passion from the Knicks that you don't get in other cities with other teams in the city. And then I think, you look at just the players on this team and how hard they play, how they don't do load management with the Knicks. They don't make excuses. They could have easily, made a million excuses and got beat by Philly with all the injuries. But they found a way, and they were able to get it to Game 7. And even in the game yesterday, they didn't lay down. Like, I'm watching Dante DiVincenzo score 39 points and try and give his team a chance. Alec Burks off the bench after he's not playing for most of the year came in and gave a heroic effort. Like, this team just fought, and how could you not love what Josh Hart has done? It feels like he's been a Knick for 10 years. He's only been a Knick for a year and a half, and he's probably one of the more beloved New York athletes we've had in 25 years. So I think you combine all that, and you're right. This is a Knicks team that is certainly beloved by the city, and I think you just got to respect the effort, man. It's disappointing, but you got to be you got to just respect what they did to leave it all out there. Truly.
Yeah, no doubt about that. I completely agree, and it's very well stated there to kind of get the snapshot of how fans have interacted and things like that with this group. Before I let you go, Jake, just a thought as where this Jets roster currently stands. You've seen the Dolphins, you've seen the Bills, the Patriots do their own thing. What's your level of confidence on May the 20th, 2024 on the work that Joe Douglas has done to improve this roster this offseason?
Look, I think if you objectively just look at the Jets roster, find me a team in the AFC that is significantly more talented than they are. I'm not saying they're the best team in the conference, but I certainly think they have the best roster in their own division. I mean, they have filled every hole with bona fide, legitimate players. I mean, their offensive line is now a strength. I mean, their backup left tackle is a first-round pick who's considered the best pass protector in the class in Olu Fashanu. He's backing up Tyron Smith, who was second-team All-Pro last year in his 13 games played. I mean, Morgan Moses is a true pro at right tackle. They have Elijah Vera-Tucker back. Joe Tippmann's in year 2. That was the biggest weakness besides quarterback a year ago. That's now a strength. Aaron Rodgers, obviously back. Tyrod Taylor backing him up. He's a pro. So if Aaron can't play 17 games, which I don't know if you could bank on, at least Tyrod could come in and give you a chance, unlike the 3 quarterbacks that the Jets deployed last year, right? So that's just the offense. And then, of course, you look at some of the moves on defense. Sure, they lost Bryce Huff, but, well, they replaced him with Hassan Reddick. Oh, they traded John Franklin Myers. Well, they have a lot of faith in Will McDonald, their first-round pick from last year, taking a big leap in year 2, just like Jermaine Johnson did this past year, going from a part-time player to a Pro Bowler from year 1 to year 2. So, look, the only thing I think that stops the Jets from having a playoff-caliber year is injuries. And you could say that about a lot of teams. It's not just Jet-specific. But if Aaron's healthy, I think they're going to be a very good team, as crazy as that probably sounds to a lot of non-Jet fans or maybe even some Jet fans.
I'd say a decent part of the Jets fan base may be a little surprised by that one too. But it is true. It's a good point, which means it is the perfect time to go follow Jake's show at Jake Asman Show on Twitter. Subscribe on YouTube. Follow him on Twitter so you can hear him across the ESPN family of networks, ESPN Radio family of networks, and SiriusXM NFL Radio as well. Jake, congratulations again on adding more radio shows and stations to the ledger. Excited to see which ones come next as you go for the world record. But we always appreciate a couple of minutes here on the drive.
Dan, anytime. Thank you so much for having me, my man. And we'll catch up soon. I guess we're on to baseball. We're on to football now. I'm an Islander fan, so I can't root for the Rangers, but I guess the Ranger fans have that.
That's fair. Well, we'll save you for baseball season. We'll go further into that. But he is Jake Asman joining us here on the drive. We have more of the drive up next here on the team.